This observational study was conducted by Kristen Hart, Kelly Mack, and Catherine Grease. It looked at what percentage of people abuse the 10-minute parking spots at Westgate Plaza.
When making a trip to our local gym in the Westgate Plaza on Central Ave, we often notice people parking in the 10-minute parking spots located closest to the entrance. These allotted parking spots are intended to be helpful for those running in the various small businesses, such as the Rite Aid or the local pizza joint, but we noticed that the 10-minute allowance is often surpassed. If people are parking in those spots for an extended period of time, it is inconsiderate of those who are parking in a busy parking lot. Furthermore, this might also inhibit business for the rest of the small strip mall, as customers might want to avoid having to park too far away from what should be a quick errand. It is our assumption that the allocated spots will be abused more often than not, and that there will subsequently be less available spots for people to otherwise park in. Therefore, our research question is, what is the percentage of people who abuse the 10-minute parking spots at Westgate Plaza, and does the percentage change from day to evening time?
In order to determine whether or not patrons disregard the 10-minute parking spots, we conducted an observational study in Westgate Plaza on Central Ave in Albany. Each member of our group spent about 30 minutes observing the number of people who parked in the spots and who went over the time limit. We selected 2 times of day from 12 to 2 p.m. and from 5 to 7 p.m. in order to compare the slower times of the early afternoon when most people are at work to the busy times of the early evening when most people are getting off of work and attending the gym, etc. Our group members were parked so that the 10-minute spots were visible, and we recorded our data. We timed those who parked in the 10-minute spots to determine if they were within the appropriate time limit. Once all 3 of us gathered data, we organized it into a table consisting of the total number of people who parked in the spots, the number of those who exceeded the time limit, how long they exceeded the time limit by up to 30 minutes, and finally, the number of those who complied with the timed allotment.
Here's the data collection of the first of the 2 spots for both the early afternoon and the evening shifts. We observed a total of 10 parkers from 12 to 2, and 3 of which exceeded the time limit, and a total of 15 parkers from the 5 to 7 shift, 7 of which exceeded the time allowance. And these are the results for the second spot, also of which categorizing both the morning and evening shifts. There were 7 parkers from 12 to 2 p.m., 5 of which abused the time allowance, and 13 for the 5 to 7 period, of which 10 exceeded the time allowance. In total, we observed 46 parkers, and of that, 24 people, or 52%, exceeded the time limit. Throughout our data collection, within the 2 allotted time frames, from 12 to 2 and 5 to 7 p.m., we were able to collect sufficient data to help determine what percentage of people abused the 10-minute parking spots at Westgate Plaza. While observing the 2 10-minute spots in front of Best Fitness in Westgate Plaza, 37% of the data was collected between 12 and 2, and 63% was collected between 5 and 7 p.m., both during the week and on the weekend. Over the course of 5 days within the allotted time frames, we were able to observe 46 different transactions within the 2 10-minute parking spots.
Of those who parked in the 10-minute spot between 12 and 2, 47%, or 8 out of 17, abused the time allotted. Additionally, 16 out of 29 of the individuals observed between 5 to 7 p.m., or 55%, abused the allotted time limit. Therefore, the overall percentage of people who obeyed the time limit was 47%, while 52% abused the time limit. Of the people who were non-compliant, the length of parking time exceeded 10 minutes by 0 to 5 minutes for 6 people, 6 to 10 minutes for 6 people, 11 to 15 minutes for 5 people, 16 to 20 minutes for 3 people, 21 to 25 minutes for no people, and 26 to 30 minutes for 1 person, and over 30 minutes for 3 people.
From the results of our study, the time of day does not appear to have an effect on those who were or were not compliant with the 10-minute parking allowance. Since there appears to be no relation between rush hour at the gym, when parking is limited, and the number of non-compliant 10-minute parking spot parkers, further research must be done on the relationship between what causes people to obey or disobey the 10-minute parking signs. It is possible that people choose to park in the spots for convenience and or laziness, since they are front spots and closest distance to the store's entrances. It is also possible people anticipate parking for 10 minutes or less but end up getting caught up waiting in lines at the stores, or their pizza wasn't ready in time, resulting in a longer time period. The largest group of abusers were those who exceeded by 0 to 10 minutes, which came out to 50%, or 12 out of 24 of the total number of abusers, leading us to believe that perhaps it was more likely to be an innocent overage. We suspect that if more parking tickets were distributed to those who are non-compliant with the 10-minute allowance, perhaps this would motivate people to park elsewhere when they need to remain parked for a period of time exceeding 10 minutes.
Our limitations of the study was, one, it's an observational study. We didn't ask people what their intentions were. Did they mean to exceed the time limit? Do they care? Were they just trying to park more conveniently? We really have no idea. A second one was our time crunch. We should have observed consistently at the same exact times each day and possibly more frequently throughout the day, besides the only 2 allotted time frames we chose. A third one was the number of subjects observed. Ideally, we should have carried this study out on a larger number of subjects in order to generalize the findings to a greater population. And lastly, the location. Could we have picked different plazas? Maybe one that is busier with multiple businesses around and one that is less busy, to see if individuals continue to abuse the 10-minute time limit. In the end, of course, ideally further research should be carried out in order to properly assess and draw conclusions on this topic.